How are we doing as I get myself situated in my seat properly, properlizing and proper side? Well, this is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr. And once again, I appreciate you joining us here for the Comeback Conversations with Dr. Clarke as we're going to continue down this why money vein. We're going to stay in this arc for a little while because we're starting to recognize there are a lot of things that as we're moving in towards this respective school year, this year of matriculation, there are things that are manifesting very forthrightly and very, very competently. And the reason why that's so important is that we have to recognize people are making respective decisions, not only here in the United States, but globally. We're hearing how things are starting to get affected in the Caribbean. We're hearing how certain countries in Asia are starting to feel affected. Certain European countries, they're starting to tighten their how should I say their wallets and their purses. And like before we go live, I usually play a couple of songs that usually gives like an insight of my vibe of the day. And I first started off with a vibe of Andre Day, Rise Up. And the reason why I started off with that song, because now there's an opportunity that we have to start to recognize as there's certain primaries that's going on right now here in the United States. Certain states are having their primaries, some very major races that can help influence or balance the power of what is flowing in when November hits, we start to see that we have to start to rise up as a people. We have to start to recognize how we can't stay disempowered or not allow ourselves to be in the spaces where we can understand certain things are developing and flowing in a particular way. And we have to understand that our voting power is very, very important in order to rise up. So that Andra Day song was one aspect of how I was feeling. Then I moved into a gospel cover of Can't Stop the Feeling. I remember playing this song for my kids in the classroom. They loved this song. It's a Justin Timberlake song, but I found like a little gospel remix of it where it's about praising. And like as we're rising up, still in a space where we have to be praised and we have to be thankful for what's happening around us. We have to be thankful for what we have. Sometimes, do you give a praise for what you have? And I know this is not Bible study, but you just hear me out in this monologue. Are you being thankful, even if it's not a praise, because we're not doing Bible study, but are you thankful for what you have? Are you attempting to be too greedy or just attempting to accumulate based upon what? Your own personal space or what it is that you really think that you need for you personally? Or are you recognizing and tapping into those gifts and talents that were given so that, that feeling that we all should be moving through, that shouldn't stop, that's that feeling of praise, that feeling of community, that feeling of camaraderie. And that's what the Comeback Collective Circle is all about. And then finally, I had to go a little old school, probably younger than one of our great moderators here, Miss Johnson. I had to go a little Capleton, some tour. And as much as people will say it's a major dance hall hit from the 90s, but there was a definitive message in it that went over very powerfully. It's amazing how a lot of songs about faith that has a nice concurrent beat. Sometimes people don't recognize the message that they're listening to, but it's in so many ways it's actually a gospel song. But it was a major, major worldwide hit. And the reason why about that, sometimes we have to remember, do we allow ourselves to go back and just to be back, as I was stating earlier, about giving that level of thanks? Because tonight we're going to talk about why money and the continuation in that vein. But with all the things that are happening, I just looked at the news and I saw SpaceX's, I think their revenue was up 92%. But when you really think about it, that's excellent if you are a stockholder of SpaceX. If you jumped in during the IPO and then SpaceX has held its ground and it's grown a little bit. And these are some of the other parts of conversations that we're going to have and elaborate and expand upon. Because so many times here in Black and Brown communities, we don't talk about the things that are happening in the current. I understand that economic situations is happening and, we have to be mindful of how we utilize our dollars. But that does not mean that we don't still be in a space that we're willing to invest in ourselves. There's so many things I know myself and my wife, Dr. Cheryl, as we, stepping out more and more into this space of entrepreneurship, which is a powerful space of freedom, but the bills got to get paid. Bills still have to get paid. And so now, as an entrepreneur, you start to have that balancing act, not the 6-7, but you have a balancing act where you start to recognize, like, wait a minute, not saying that we weren't mindful of our expenses or what is going on in our respective opportunity or community, but now you just take a little bit better eye. You start to recognize, like she was saying today, I'm not going to turn on the oven today. There's a reason for that. Not because she can't cook a great meal, but then you start to make those decisions like, wait a minute, okay, it's warm outside, maybe we can do an alternative and it makes sense. And those are some of the business of living decisions that people are making. So as before I go any further, and I don't want to take over the space in this monologue, I see Dr. Cheryl's here. How are we doing on this fine evening? So we can get our mic checks on. Our mic checks on.
Today. I'll give you a little more today. Hi.
Wait a minute. Oh, 1995. Look at Nicole doing the fact checking. Were you around in 90? You were around in 95. Oh, you was a little kid in 95. Nicole wasn't around in 95. Okay, that's good. So yes, Miss Sarah, as you were saying, as I was saying about, people making those respective choices from an economic standpoint, even though people are getting empowered in their voice, you still have to make those responsible choices. So what would you say to that? As we're hearing all the stuff that's happening that we get abreast of. I wish there was an eye roll emoji on Zoom. Oh God. Or you can come live and give us the eye roll. Go ahead, Dr. Shaw.
I don't know. What was the question? Oh, I'm just greeting everybody to say hi.
Oh, you were saying hi. No, we're talking about economics and how people are making, respective choices in this season. It's not that they're making choices based upon lack, but they're just being a little bit more responsible with their choices, especially when it comes to their finances.
Oh, yeah. I think that when we're looking at the finances, I think it's important for us to be good steward over what God has given us. That's number one. And number two, I don't think that, like your platform, discuss money. And I don't think that money is discussed enough in our community in a way that's group forward.
Mm.
Um, I think we talk about money. I think we're the biggest consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And and I gotta give thanks to you in the very beginning of our relationship. You introduced me to my first concept of money. Understanding money is something then you putting it in action. So there's things away how the rich do things, and you talk about the Rockefellers and Chase, and I love to talk about them because they were not an island. They were four entrepreneurs that came together and they cornered New York
Mm.
in a way that if we can do that, it would be phenomenal. So I just think that families start having these conversations at your dinner tables, start having conversations with extended families, learn about trust, learn about how you can extend your money. And I think it's important for that. So I'm grateful for a platform like this. I'm grateful for you in talking about how to be with money. And the first thing you start with is the mindset. And you can't do anything unless your mindset is reset. And I'm complete.
Excellent, excellent. Let's go to Miss Johnson, Miss Capleton tour, and let's see if we can get some great insight. Because I know her as a person who at least has her dabbled her foot in the markets. That means she has an understanding as we're seeing things move and shake, and and I know last week we was talking about like the Clarity Act and things of that nature. So, from a standpoint of being fiscally responsible, Miss Johnson, what would you say as people are making those respective choices in this season?
Good evening, everyone. It's interesting. As I was listening to Dr. Cheryl speak about how you help to improve her values in reference to money, I was thinking about our government because I've been reading the news in the last couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, we went in and excuse me, not we, the controlling party created a new government body called Doge that was supposed to go after
Oh.
spending, after waste, which in theory, if operated properly, would be great. But then
Mm,
I was reading a news story about how possibly our country is out of long range missiles.
mm,
So if we're doing accounting and planning, are you running out of missiles? But that's a problem for another day. But then thinking about stewardship of money, if our economy is in such dire straits that we are, in fact, affecting other world markets to the point where we have to, with trillions of dollars being added to our deficit, bail out Japan because now their currency is fluctuating. We're not even a global example of how to operate properly with money. We have a lot of arguments about money, but we don't have substantive conversations that can help us build, learn, and grow. Like Dr. Cheryl brought up the fact of the people who gather together to make better decisions, that happens in Congress, but it's not advocated for at the local level, at the school level, and unfortunately not at the church level. So
mm.
unless we have places like the Comeback Collective where we can come back and start to build building blocks of education, we're missing out. So I'm grateful to be a part of the community that is helping to do that for a greater population. And I'm complete.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. William Richards, I know you're coming to us from the Caribbean. How is it down there as they're making, as y'all are, experiencing it from a different aspect and a different perspective in regards to handling finances and seeing how things are moving from, I would say, a more geopolitical space? What would you say in regards to how people are navigating this season when it comes to their finances down there where you're from?
Good evening to all. Well, when you look at it, you see that tourism is our main industry.
Mm,
So it's like you see a big ship in, but then you look at the economy of the island, and you see that the hills are brown. So,
mm,
when things are brown, it's like there's a lot of patching going on, and you need some rain. And the rain is actually ideas that the people bring to the table. But when you have the heads fighting, right? You have many chiefs and very few Indians. It's
mm.
like nothing goes in place at that particular time. But then if they really sit down and say, let's have a plan. But if they don't plan, then the plan they fail and complete.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. That is so true. And so, in a couple of seconds, we're going to get into the teaching for today, and it's so important for us to be abreast of what needs to happen and be aware of what's happening around us. Too many times, you know, and I believe it was done on purpose. And I've said this before, and I need to reiterate this. The reason why this community, this platform, this channel is so important is that now we have to continue to be the clarion call, because usually something that develops has to have a foundation space, because there will come a time where it's going to be, this place is going to be crowded, this place is going to be, bumping, jumping, we're going to be having events, we're going to be, hobnobbing face to face and all. I see it. But the reason why conversations like this about entrepreneurship or money or mindset or having the right being are not necessarily as thought provoking as people would like to give their attention to, because too many times there are other things that are gathering our information, and that's purposely done. I know even myself and Dr. Shaw, we have our guilty pleasures with certain shows that we look at, But then there are times that we have to tear ourselves away, and I say tear ourselves away from the space of saying, like, wait a minute, we have to remember that we got some work to do. She's doing her part. I'm doing my part. There's things has to be done from a space of development that you can't wait. You can't wait for if it's going to happen. No, you're the if. It's not about when it's going to happen. No, you're the when. And so when you start to really position yourself in that level of accountability and that level of consistency, you start to understand that, wait a minute, we're not moving in this, okay, will I? No, it's not will I have to. And that's where the business of living kicks in. So once again, I thank everyone for their initial, thoughts and shares as we now are going to go in and get into the teaching. Here we go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's hide you. Okay, Ms. Johnson, other than that box in the corner, do we see everything else clear?
We are box free, actually.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, without further ado, we're going to deal with what is money. Last week was why money. This week is what is money. And we dealt with that. And if you missed that conversation last week, you can definitely go become a subscriber to our YouTube channel and catch episodes 81 and 82, if I'm not mistaken. And that will give you the why money conversation where we had a great back and forth and dialogue. And, we had some pointed measures and pointed, space of developing the conversation. And that's what it's truly about. So what is money? Money is not just wealth. See, sometimes we equate that money is wealth. No, money is not wealth. Money is actually a tool. And when we recognize that as a necessary tool that we all can acquire, all can utilize, and all have the ability to get as much as that we so desire without, I got the DMX song in my mind, don't be greedy. But being greedy doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to go accumulate finances. Like we would say that Elon Musk is greedy because he's the first, trillionaire in this particular time frame. But in some many ways, it's not necessarily that he's being greedy. It's just that he has used his leverage appropriately. And with that, he has created an opportunity of major wealth. Now it's up to us to be in those respective spaces and say, wait a minute, are we going to do that for ourselves? So money is simply a tool used to exchange value. Your real wealth is made of, Miss Johnson, can you read those 5 parts that real wealth is made of?
Knowledge, skills, relationships, assets, production.
Mm-hmm. So now knowledge base is so important because as it was alluded to, we talk about mindset here at the circle. And the reason why we talk about mindset is it makes no sense to prepare you to acquire wealth or to get assets or to get those areas where you may have the ability of sustainability without the action or without the foundation of how to handle it. That's where your mindset and your being are so vitally important. If you're not willing to position yourself in those spaces to recognize how important that is, you'll make the assumption that just because you have a pile of money in front of you, that means you're good. And then don't recognize without the proper maintenance or the proper investment, that money will actually start to lose value. You can have $1 million and that $1 million doesn't buy $1 million these days that $1 million 30 years ago would purchase. And it's not that it is the same $1 million in face value, but we're talking about purchasing power. We're talking about bargaining chips. We're talking about your ability to purchase assets. It's a big difference. Like I know when myself and Dr. Cheryl first purchased our home in the middle 90s, that house cost us 100, I think it was about 120, 130,000. Now, mind you, this is in the Bronx, New York. that house, when we initially purchased it, is 130,000. Believe you me, that house is worth way more than that. We're in multiples now of what that house is worth from that original space of almost 30 years ago, purchasing it at around $130,000. So that just gives you an opportunity to recognize that real wealth is made by one of the parts here, an asset. That piece of property is an asset until we decide that maybe we decide to move on from it. And then you can take those proceeds, and those proceeds should go into another asset. It shouldn't go into say, oh, we just going, No, that's never good. Money has to have a direction. You have to give money an opportunity to work with you and for you. Because if you don't, that's when it disappears. So also the next one is skills. What is your skill set? What is it that you're developing? Because see, knowledge is one of the foundations, but now you're moving into skills. How are you applying your trade? How are you moving in the respective marketplace? What markets? Who are your customers? Who are you dealing with? Everyone is buying and selling something. And people sometimes get in this thing, says, I'm a lawyer. You're still selling something. You're selling your services as a lawyer. You're selling. You have to be a good salesman. You have to position yourself. Where are your skills in that? And there have been plenty of times where you can see, you have lawyers at every level. The same way you can have therapists at every level. Same way you can have coaches at any level. Where is your skill set, and how do you keep developing those skills so that can add a possibility to develop your wealth? Relationships, like as we continue to develop and grow the Comeback Collective Circle here, it is about relationship. It's not about, I'm just going to make this money on my own. No, it's better to grow with others. It's better to be in a community where if I see someone else prospering, I can celebrate them. You're not sitting there just saying, "Oh, I'm going to feel bad minded," as some of my career people know. You're so bad minded. You're bad minded. Why are you being bad minded for? Celebrate them. Be happy for them. Because you celebrate them, that means that same energy can come upon you. It doesn't make no sense to be jealous. Put in the work that you see someone else is doing instead of just sitting there just looking at someone with a screw face. It makes no sense. And as we talked about, assets is definitely a part of making up your real wealth possibility, because without assets, you just have a bunch of things. And eventually, if you have more assets than just things, that means those assets will help you get the possibility of getting those things. And production, what are you producing? I don't care if it's a t-shirt business. I don't care if you're selling coffee. I don't care if you're selling a burger. It's all part of the spaces of production. And now we have to start to look at whatever type of systems are you working through so that your production is workable, so it's sustainable. And if it's sustainable, that's when you start to generate wealth. Money merely measures these things. And as Warren Buffett said, Warren Buffett's real wealth isn't his cash, even though he's no longer in charge of Berkshire Hathaway, but he's still the main and number one stockholder of the company. It's his knowledge of investing and the businesses he owns. The money is just the scorecard. So there are times that we all can look in our respective accounts and be like, ooh, that is giving me a microcosm of my scorecard. Am I winning? And it's not so much that you're losing, but am I winning effectively? If I'm winning at one level, and it says, wait a minute, I could be winning at a better level. Maybe I can get more championships. Okay, so what do you have to do? That means sometimes you got to put in a little bit more work so that we're not just stuck at this 1,000-aire level. Then you become 100,000-aire. Then that 100,000-aire, you become a millionaire. And then so on and so forth. Any thoughts before we move on to the next slide?
I have a slight thought.
Go ahead.
When you said that money is used as a tool to exchange, it's like I knew it in my head intellectually, but I was thinking about Elon Musk and SpaceX.
Mm-hmm.
With that IPO, he's now cleared the debt of all those initial investors by using the ordinary public's money.
Mm-hmm.
So in a couple years, he'll do a buyback. And with all the new technologies, all the new things that he's building, where he's actually reaching out for new employees to help build AI supercomputers,
Mm-hmm.
that $1 trillion will be nothing. So that money as a tool of exchange was amazing. And I'm complete.
Yeah, that's why as we start to really recognize, and I can't wait because I know probably late August or early September, I'm gonna get into leverage and why debt is good if you utilize it correctly. And there are times that black and brown people were positioned to say, don't go into debt, don't go into debt. And I'm recognizing when I see Byron Allen becoming in that space where he's almost considered now a billionaire. And basically, the reason why is that because he kept using OPM, he kept using the leverage of others to find assets that can generate some cash flow, that can help pay down what he borrowed. And by paying down what he borrowed, it started growing in value. And as it grew in value, he owned the asset, even though he borrowed money to get the asset. The same way Elon Musk did. All Elon Musk did from the time when he started PayPal to now. I mean, you still really think about it. You know, he utilized other people's money. He built and leveraged systems, developed them. In the case of PayPal, he used the PayPal money to initially get into those first rounds that he decided and desired always to get into space travel and into the space race. And then through that, he was able to purchase Tesla. And then, before it became X, it used to be Twitter and all the other stuff. You started to recognize even when he bought Twitter. Twitter was something that I think he got for like around $34 billion. And he had the money. He could have sold a bunch of the stock because he was already worth hundreds of billions of dollars. So he could have sold he could have sold $34 billion of stock and took that company private, which he ultimately still did. But the banks and the leverage market said, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, 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 no. We want to make sure you got skin in the game. All you have to do is put 25%. We'll let you borrow the rest. Wait a minute, you gonna lend me like close to $30 billion? Yeah. Because we've seen your track record based upon how you moved in the marketplace. So we're willing to but we're willing to lend you the money, knowing that now we're going to be partners with you. Because as you work this business, you're going to be paying down this debt. And if you're paying down this debt and this asset starts to grow in value, it becomes a win-win. So instead of him having to sell $34 billion, he sold roughly a little over $8 billion. Whereas he borrowed the rest and serviced that financing like any other loan. Same way Magic Johnson did it, the same way that Shaq learned how to do it, and they learned all that from Dr. Jerry Buss, who was one of the owners of the Los Angeles Lakers during the time when they were all players. They got them into those conversations. So I can't wait to that space when we start really talking about leverage, because we have to start to understand the way we look at money is not correct, especially if you're looking at it from the mindset of something that you just have to acquire to pay bills. That is the wrong avenue and mindset to be in. How are we leveraging our time? How we're utilizing our knowledge base, how we're working our skills, how we're building the right relationships, how are we acquiring the right assets, and then what are we producing? That's continuous. What is it that's we're in the marketplace? I don't care if it's a hoodie, a t-shirt, a mug, or whatever, a book. What are we producing? Because I know the other day myself and Dr. Cheryl, we was listening to someone online, and he just, made the statement. He's like, I make $81,000. This gentleman was saying that. Hey, I make $81,000 a year off of one of my books. And you would think about it, $81,000 off of one of his books. I'm not talking about he offers other services, other possibilities to interact with them, but for one book and how he leveraged that book. That's why we even talk about, the intellectual property, how he leveraged that book, brings in as a part of his bottom line. He can see that, oh, wait a minute, this one book alone brings in $81,000 a year. So that means you're talking about a book that he may have written how many X amount of years ago is bringing close to $7,000 into his possibility of navigating and moving and circulating in the marketplace appropriately. So, Dr. Cheryl, as I'm bringing that up, because I remember we were both in the car listening to that, does anything else come to mind for you before we move on?
Yeah, this is such a powerful conversation. The thing I wanted to say is that you're bringing up a good lesson because Warren Buffett, what he had, and we studied him a lot, talked about discipline. I, he had the same stuff that he ate every day. He would pay the same amount of money. And it's amazing of how you begin to look at the mindset that you have, that it has to start, and you start developing the habits that over time you can begin to reap the harvest. Now, going back to the book, we have to really understand some of the principles that come along. You should have several, he was saying there's several streams of income. That was just one of his income streams. And I'm thinking, well, we're of the thought that you should have at least 5 streams coming in when you're an entrepreneur. Because in that moment when I was still daycare, I was teaching, I was selling stuff, I was doing parties. There's different things that I was doing for different streams. Now we're in a virtual world. You should have people in your ear to be able to say intellectual property, like Dr. Clarke just said, your knowledge. What are the skill sets that you have? What are the relationships that's going to sell that book? And have the different type of things that you're doing. So I think it's valuable because whatever you're producing, and then no one, I'm the only Cheryl Clarke in his body. Dr. Gregory Clarke is the only Gregory Clarke in that body. Nicole is the only Nicole in that body. William Rich is the only body that you're going to have. Be on your assignment and be able to do this and get around people that's going to launch you forward. And I'm going to say this last thing. I think now that as we're moving, Dr. Clarke, you're noticing that the clientele that we're getting that's gravitating because we're understanding that it was not about us. It is about the community. When the community wins, we win. And I'm complete.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's go on to the next slide.
I think Nicole put something in the chat.
Oh, I didn't see it. Please, Nicole, share it. Share what you put in the chat.
Yeah. In listening to Dr. Cheryl, she was like, her goal is to have at least 5 streams of income. And I brought up the verse from the Bible, Ecclesiastes 11:2, that talks about having 8 streams of income. So it's not like we're pushing too hard. If you follow the Bible as your guide, your goal is 8. So you're not being greedy. You're following the guidebook. And I'm complete.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we see that function number 1 about money. It's a medium of exchange. Money allows people to trade efficiently instead of, I'll trade 2 chickens for some shoes. People simply pay with money. Money simplifies commerce. And as last week when we dealt with bartering to banking, before money, humans relied on barter for over 9,000 years, but it required a double coincidence of wants. You needed someone who had what you wanted and wanted what you had. Money eliminated this problem entirely. And so when we start to recognize that, when we see that money is just meant to be in the space to be currency, that's why when we talk about it, those dollar bills or those credit cards or those cards that we may have, or debit cards or whatever, or cryptocurrency, currency. As I said, cryptocurrency, it's currency. It's supposed to be moving. And if we're not allowing it to move, then we have to really look within ourselves to say, why isn't it moving? Why aren't we helping to position it to be moving? And why would we want it to be stagnant? And I just said a curse word by saying wanted. Why would we desire it to be stagnant? For it to be sitting there and be like, okay, it's looking at you and it's looking back at me. Like, what are we doing here? We just looking at each other? Now I need you to go back out there to get to work. I need you to figure out, how we can, position you so I put you into something that's coming back pregnant. And so that pregnant money theory is very, very vitally important, especially if you're talking about being in the wealth conversation. It's not about just about money. Money is the easiest thing to get. We all can get money. There have been times where I know that each one of us probably experienced very highs, extreme highs, where we were probably flush for money. Not saying that we, some Elon Musk level, but a time where you felt real comfortable. And then times like this happen, where you have recessionary possibilities, where you have high inflation, where you have things that can position you in now this part of the business of living to be like, wait a minute, I got to figure out, and not that you're being cheap, but you're being very, very mindful of what you're getting, how you're getting it, and if you need it or not. Which shows that there's a difference between frugal and being cheap. I would never advise anyone, especially believe me, under the sound of my voice, if you're part of the circle and you're listening to this on YouTube, please do not be cheap. Do not move around in a cheap manner. But if you tell me that you're being frugal and you're recognizing how to negotiate and you're recognizing how to get something of quality and you can probably get it at a better price because you have some bargaining skills, then please go ahead and do so. Don't be that person that's willing to pay top dollar for something that you could have got at 50% off. It doesn't prove anything to say, both of y'all are walking, two people walking in the room and say, oh, you went to the same store? Yeah, I went to the same store. How much you paid? I paid 50% more than you did. Someone's going to look wiser than the other. And let that person be you. So remember, we move from the bartering system to recognizing as a medium of exchange, we are supposed to be wise stewards of what it is that we're handling so that we can move effectively during the various seasons. Because this wasn't the first recessionary time frame. There was previous ones where we can go back to 07, 08. We can go back into the 90s with the S&L crisis here in the United States, and that was one time frame. We can talk about the internet boom bust that happened in 2000, 2001, and there'll probably be something else that happened later on. Because believe you me, we're going to come out of this and it's going to get better. But the people who were able to ride the wave appropriately and properly during this time frame are the ones that's going to ride high. And leverage and utilize the money appropriately and properly is the major, major key. Any other thoughts by anyone before we move on? Function number 2. It is a unit of account. Yes, it is. It is a unit of account. And the reason why money provides a common measurement, without it, pricing can become chaotic. Coffee could be $5. A car is $40,000. A house, $500,000. Ancient civilizations use silver by weight, and even conrod shells as units of account. Each society needed a common standard to make trade scalable. Today, the US dollar serves as the world's primary reserve currency, used to price oil, gold, and global trade. So, Ms. Johnson, as you were alluding to, as you were talking about the fact that because of the brilliance of our administration, I know they said right now we've used about 80%, and I saw that number myself earlier today. We've used about 80% of our stockpile. Not only on top of the fact that we've been touching our petroleum reserves, but how would that affect us when it comes to the overall scheme of things when we think about it from an economic standpoint, from your thoughts?
A couple of ways. If we have supply and demand, if there's no supply, I'm going to have to do whatever I need to do, including paying expedite fees, vendors realizing, okay, I can't go out and buy the raw materials to build the things you need, so I have to increase your price. So you're increasing your price 4 times over by poor management and bad decision making. Because like even going back to the last slide, I was thinking of a point I thought about a couple of days ago. If you're always looking for the least possible cost for something, meaning you're not going out and buying high end even for everyday basics, you have to find the lowest of the low. Do you value yourself? If you're not even willing to invest in the things that you need that make your life not luxurious, but comfortable, if you don't value yourself, do you really even value your money? Because you're stockpiling something that you'll never use, and you may or may not be able to leave to someone else to maybe they can get the benefit of it. So it's all about making sure that as you make decisions, you think about not just yourself, which is part of those legacy project, but going forward, how your actions are affecting you and generations to come. And I'm complete.
That is so true. Thank you for that share. Thank you for that poignant share. As we move forward. Function number 3, store of value. Now, this is very, very important. Money allows purchasing power to be saved. Instead of consuming everything today, people can save for tomorrow. Now, this is going to be very interesting with this slide. We're talking about emergency funds. Usually most people suggest 6 to 12 months, but these days they already stated most Americans do not have 6 months of reserves. And it's not that because they weren't wise stewards, it's that everything has been put in an inflationary standpoint where there's some level of pressure. So emergency funds is one thing. Retirement. It means people have their 401ks, 403bs, their Roth IRAs, their KEOs, their, things that they're saying that, this money's on the side. So when I choose to be on that 6-month, cruise and, stop by my house for a couple of days and jump back on another one, I have enough money in my retirement accounts to fund that type of living if that's what I'm choosing to live. Your investments, which is necessary even when you're in retirement space. What are the things that you're willing to invest in? And the sad thing about black and brown communities, even though we're getting more and more into the markets, is that we're still not in the markets at the level that we should be. Because there are people still having the ability to see their money multiply because they allow their money to work in those markets where it's working without them having to push for it. They don't have to sweep a broom. They don't have to flip a burger. They allow their money to keep working and it brings back more money. That's investments and business capital. As we were talking in one of the previous slides about assets, you need business capital to, have that dream, have that possibility. A Colonel Sanders, Oprah Winfrey, a Tyler Perry, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal. All these individuals recognize that you got to have some sort of ownership in something. You can't just sit there and say, I'm a billionaire. What do you own? What do you do? I'm just a billionaire. No, the reason why you're a billionaire is because you sold something or you have a service of something. You provide something. You provided something. That's why you ended up with what you have. So even nowadays, as I'm thinking, like for myself and Dr. Cheryl Clarke, we're recognizing every single day, what are the things that we're offering? How we're offering it? How we're creating the value? How we're, creating the necessary areas where the business capital or the reinvestment in things like websites or, all the respective areas of technology or the workflow chain can become beneficial. Now, this number that you see, percentage right there, 2.9%. USCPI, which is Consumer Price Index. So, Ms. Johnson, can you read that sentence for me, please?
The Consumer Price Index rose 2.9% from December 2023 to December 2024, meaning $100 saved today buys less next year. Whoa.
Now, this is I'm speaking to my people right now, especially those who are probably watching this on, record, and especially, make sure you become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. The handle is at Dr. Gregory Clarke Master Coach, or just type in Gregory Clarke D-Min Master Coach, and the channel will pop up. And this will probably be in episode probably more 83 than 84. When you hear people talk about, I'd rather keep money in my house, That's not necessarily a good thing. Now, if you're talking about coins, like if you have like gold coins in your house, or if you have silver coins in your house, I might can rock out with you because based upon those markets and based upon the fact that they're precious metals, that will appreciate over time. So if you have some gold coins or gold bars or silver, bars and stuff like that, or platinum bars.
How are you doing? This is Dr. Gregory Clarke, and I hope you enjoyed this past video. Now, once again, I invite you to become a part of the Comeback Collective Circle on this wonderful time frame, and not only by enjoying the video, but going to get my book, Life in the Huddle. You can get this copy and get your copy today, right now, by going to the Amazon.com website and type in Life in the Huddle. This is a great book, not only for yourself, but it's a very autobiographical tome that I've written. And the reason why it's so important, you can connect with the Comeback Collective Circle. You can support this community by financial means. You can do it via Cash App at $Gregory Clarke D Min, or you can go via Venmo to Gregory Clarke D Min. Or if you desire to do it via Zelle or PayPal, you can simply use the same email address, esquire971@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the journey. Can't wait for you to see you as a part of the circle as we grow the community. Have a great day.